What if everything you're being told about manufacturing right now is wrong? I've talked to some owners and different people in the industry. On one side, you hear concern of not enough people in the industry. And then you hear about not enough jobs coming in, how much work is coming into North America, and then particularly Ontario today. And so my guest today gets a call from reporters looking for what's the big story? Where's the 500 people getting laid off? And so Jason Bates keeps telling them the truth. Yeah, there's some layoffs in smaller numbers. There's some hiring in smaller numbers. But this catastrophe that we like to the news gets excited about isn't real. And the vast majority of manufacturers are doing fine. And today he's going to tell you the truth of what's really going on and what's some moves that you can make so you're not one of those plants that are stuck. And we're going to talk about Ontario because you're coming in from London, Ontario. But we're going to talk about how this applies to North America. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Hi, Trevor. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here today.
So you are the Manufacturing Consortium Manager at EMC, Canada's largest manufacturing consortium. You're the host of the Factory Focus podcast. And thank you, Andrew Litt, for introducing us. And one manufacturer asked me, what is a consortium?
So yeah, I've been knocking around manufacturing in Southern Ontario and Southeastern Michigan too for almost 30 years now, my career in manufacturing. I started selling MRO supplies to factories in the region through Metro Detroit all the way up through Southern Ontario. So I've been in this sector for a long time, went out on my own about 20 years ago, got hooked up with the Excellence in Manufacturing Consortium. The Excellence in Manufacturing Consortium is an industry association. We go right across Canada. Kind of the gist of it, the down and dirty of it is our members working together to help each other continuously improve. The idea that the expertise is already within the manufacturing base and I plug one manufacturer to another to help each other out. I can hook them up with consultants or experts or whatever, but generally somebody has solved the issue one manufacturing is having already in the area, in the region, and I hook them up with that manufacturer who's solved it and they work together to get things done. EMC engages about 18,000 manufacturers right across Canada annually. I specifically manage the consortiums in Southern Ontario, which I'm really proud to say has become the largest group of manufacturers in North America working together to help continuously improve right here in Southern Ontario. Work with about 800 companies in the region, and I facilitate the benchmarking, best practice sharing, connecting, business development, and everything in between like that. So I'm kind of like a concierge for manufacturers in Southern Ontario. I also manage the field, the people like me across Canada for EMC. So I'm certainly on the ground in Southern Ontario, but I'm talking to manufacturers right across Canada consistently.
Yeah, and because here's the thing with manufacturing, and I'm guilty of it, Jason. I was born in London, Ontario, and I work in a lot around the areas in Southwestern Ontario, and I didn't really get involved in a lot of community outside of our own company. And now, like years later, I realized, man, I missed out. Here, there's this, like I said, some people aren't even familiar with a consortium. And here we have the largest one right here in London and Southern Ontario and what you're doing there. It was Andrew he had wider lenses than me. So he got involved and he could see that impact and how important it was for that community. And like you said, the answers are in the room, I like to say sometimes, but the answers are in our community. And if you've got this problem, probably somebody else has got it. So thank you for bringing us all together here and coming on the show here.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. And it could be a small problem. It could be a big problem. I have so many examples of a line may go down at somebody's plant in the area and they need a part, and that part's going to take 6 weeks or a month to get here from somewhere. I send out my SOS to my contacts in the region, and within an hour, we could find that part that another plant has in their crib, and they're talking to each other, going to pick it up, and the plant that went down is up and running within 2 hours, just with the community working together. So it's a learned trait. Once we get them used to working together and realizing that if they help one another, the whole sector is going to rise. And we've been successful at that here in Southern Ontario and EMC across Canada as a whole, but especially very active here in Southern Ontario.
That's so motivating because you know what? Today, listeners, if you're driving into work, you're not going to hear the news. You're going to hear what's going on. As Jason, you talk to so many different people, like you just gave the example. And I know people are looking for the big story, but what's the general climate? Like when I talk to you, things are okay.
Yeah, we're not going to downplay the effect of tariffs or the idea of tariffs or the scary part of tariffs. There certainly has been some effect, but it's not the horror story. I'm not hearing the horror story that you mentioned, the media, and yeah, they will call me up a fair bit and ask me for the sky is falling story. There's some people laying off small numbers and there's people hiring small numbers. I'm not seeing hiring of 500 people, but there's some big plants in the region that are under construction right now. So in the next 3, 4, 5 years, there's going to be mass hirings in the region, but I'm not seeing the mass layoffs either. So one of the things I do to facilitate the benchmarking and networking is in-person activity at different plants. A lot of times it's a plant tour, this, that, or whatever. I'll get, depending on the size of the facility and how many people they can accommodate, I'll get 15 other manufacturers to 100 manufacturers touring different manufacturers at any point in time. And what I do before each tour or each session in person is I go around the room, who you are, where you're from, and how's business. So when the tariffs first started to hit, there was a lot of hesitation, a lot of nervousness. Business doesn't like uncertainty, any business. That affects investment, that affects all sorts of things. So that is happening. But I go around the room, as I said, who you are, where you're from, and how's business. And I'm going around this room, and I'm doing this for 18, 20 years. And then all of a sudden, even with the tariff situation and the trade upheaval, is like, we're doing all right. We're doing good. We're hiring 2 or 3. We had a great month. We're finding new business. We're XYZ and doing this. So all of a sudden, I did a tour last week with about 40 plants, and 39 of them were busy and growing and hiring onesie twosies. One was slow, but it wasn't because of tariffs. It was they made plumbing fixtures. It was because of the downturn in the Toronto condo market. It's very interesting, with, as you mentioned, what the media is looking for the reality. And this is every session I have. It's the same thing. We're doing all right. The worst most people say is we're holding our own. That's generally the worst. And I talk to my colleagues across Canada, the people that do what I do in other parts of Canada, and they're reporting the same things to me. I don't want to downplay the uncertainty that the tariffs create, because it is an issue and we all want it to go away.
Yeah.
But it's not the sky is falling that the media likes to portray. Definitely. We've seen some really encouraging stories, especially when I do my podcasts with different manufacturers across Canada, of them finding new business, of them having customers from Europe now calling them up out of nowhere and say, hey, can you make this for me? There is, with the uncertainty in the United States, I'm seeing other jurisdictions calling Canadian companies saying, we just don't feel super comfortable about moving this business to the United States right now. We'd rather make it in Canada because of just the more certainty of dealing with you guys. We're certainly seeing a push to do more business locally with manufacturers in the region in Canada. So maybe somebody was getting something from overseas or in the States, and they just simply didn't realize that a plant in Southern Ontario can supply that same thing. And now there's a really urgency to say, okay, let's kind of see if we can tighten up our supply chain to more local, to more Canadian things. So we're certainly seeing that. I do a lot of business development networking where I'll have a big session where 300 or 400 or 1,000 companies will come out and have a room. Would you like a booth? And now we're seeing in 3 days, 200 manufacturers want a booth just to continue the networking. So networking has really hit a new level, and the openness to explore regional, local, provincial Canadian connections and other markets too. It's really interesting. I was at a plant, an automotive parts plant here in the region a few weeks ago, and these guys were super concerned about tariffs. Now, they're a tier 2, tier 3. That is still covered by free trade, the auto parts going into the United States. But he kind of saw the writing on the wall and wanted to diversify a little bit out of automotive 100%. And he got into some work for gold mines and some parts for appliance, a metal stamping plant for dishwashers. So he told me, Jay, our volumes are lower than they've been, but our profit margins are higher than they've ever been. So a lot of them looking at kind of new ways to run their plant, new product lines, profitability, focusing on profitability as opposed to production levels. It's really interesting. There's a lot of stories like that. Jay, we diversified. We're not making as many parts as we did, but we're making more money than we ever did before.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, interesting.
So, because we like the narrative of the tariffs, and this is an evergreen episode. You may be listening to this 5 years from now, and you're going to be hearing, you're going to have another crisis of some sort.
Yeah, there's crisis. We've both been around long enough to have gone through some crises.
If things are going good, something's going to be thrown in your way. It may be something that, like the tariffs, that's going to throw a wrench in kind of how we're doing it. But the wrench isn't always a bad thing, right? So maybe if we reframe the tariffs, for example, I said, okay, what's good about that? What's good about that is that I just learned that there's someone in our province that can make this part. And guess what? They've been working with AI and technology and their team members and how we can be competitive in Southwestern Ontario or wherever you're at, wherever you're listening from, the state that you're in, the country that you're in. So is this such a bad thing that all of a sudden, you know what? We need to network more within our group because we need to understand more of what are our capabilities here. We talked about expectations and control, and that's where stress comes in. If your expectations are so high and your control is low, then you're going to have a lot of stress. Okay, what's in my control? Maybe I can buy some of my parts closer to me and I don't have to have border crossings. Maybe that's a good thing. How does that land with you, Jason?
Yeah, I think a lot of manufacturers can get complacent when things are chugging along very well. I think we saw that the 2008, 2009 there downturn. And I remember going into a lot of shops at that point in time, and they were messy, unorganized, messy, but it was just they were making money hand over fist, so they didn't have to address those weaknesses. When all of a sudden you got to address your weaknesses and tighten up your production, tighten up your shop floor and stuff, it forces you to be a better company. A lot of times a crisis will weed out the weak players. A strong survive type thing. That's just capitalism and how business is. And the tariff stuff too. I think that this is another opportunity when you rely on all your products to go to one customer. In this case, we'll say the United States. From a Canadian standpoint, that's easy. It's easy to ship there, but now you got to investigate and really look at how to diversify and make your business stronger. Yeah, I think it's an introspective time for manufacturers to kind of look at how they run their business and where they find their business and how they do their connections and those sorts of things. So it's really opened their mind to that. And I got some really cool stories of, we didn't even know we could sell this to somebody in Canada. We didn't know there was a market for this here in Canada. We're never going to replace the US market. There's no way. And then I don't think I believe this will get worked out and it'll work itself out, but there's nothing wrong with it working itself out and you finding new avenues for business as well.
And because this leads me to kind of what I was wondering too, right? Because I think there'll be some manufacturers right now that are listening to this podcast, no matter where you are in the continent or in the world, that there's probably some community around you. And when you engage with a manufacturer that has not been part of a community and all of a sudden they kind of get brought in, what's the big ahas, or is there one, or is it just acclimatization of, also I got a community now, but what do you see when a new person comes into the EMC?
Yeah, I think when I go and talk to them and tell them about the community and tell them about the supports available through the community, and I pose myself as, we'll say, I'm a concierge to manufacturers in Southern Ontario. Or whatever you need, let me know and I'll connect you. I certainly don't know all the answers, but I generally know who does. And it's my job to connect you with those people that have the answers. I think once they started to engage with me and they're like, oh, this is real. You do have a community. And it is, I mentioned this, it's a learned behavior. And there's some people that don't want to open their doors. Fair enough. Or they'll have competition concerns. And I'm like, there may be somebody that makes the exact same thing as you, but it's not like there's not 10 of you making these exact same things, right? And the willingness of the community to share, and I get a lot of like really shop floor things. I dig the shop floor things. I don't want to bring in I'm not going to bring in an economist to talk to the people. I'll let a chamber. Like I don't get a buzz off that. But if you want to find a supplier for this and it's in Ontario, or if you got an issue on your shop floor that you want to improve on, those are the things I get a buzz out of. Once people start coming to the tours and the in-person networking, COVID really changed how I operated, because before COVID, it was all in person. Then COVID was 8,000 virtual sessions. And the in-person stuff was slow to come back. People are like, I don't need to leave my shop. I can just do this first. Listen, plant tours are cool, man. We got that build back up. And when I tell people on the plant tours, we're not there to talk about a specific issue. Sometimes we aren't, but generally the host will brag about something they're good at. We were at a tour in Windsor last week, and a Japanese seatbelt manufacturer in automotive, and they talked about how they've embraced the Toyota production system and stuff and lean and different things like that. This is impressive. You're like, so they did that, and 30 plants that were there, their eyes were popping over. But you open with, this is great. Yeah, to see it in action. It's what happens after the networking that I find out after that really drives the value. Like I found out one of the plants on the tour was from London, went down to Windsor, and they're quoting 10 million parts for this plant in Windsor now that they didn't know each other just before this. Or I'll find out, that happens a lot, the business part of it. Oh, I didn't know you guys are discussing business development after the introductions. That happens a lot, is the business development, the business connections at the in-person training. So we're not there to talk about that specifically. You're a plant manager sitting next to a plant manager for another plant that you've never met before. It's a different connection than your business development talking to their salesperson. It's a different type of connection. It's at a different level. So they exchange cards, they start talking without me in the middle, and hey, can you make this part? Yeah, I can make this part. And all of a sudden somebody's quoting millions of parts for this plant just because of the plant tour we went on. Or I didn't know you guys did that. I've driven by your shop 1,000 times on my way to work. I had no idea you guys did that. So, oh, okay, I need that. I didn't know you did that. Those things happen. A lot of times I'll say, we were at the plant tour and we were really impressed with their maintenance department. So after the tour, I emailed them, and now I'm sending my maintenance guys there to shadow them to see what they do. And their maintenance guys are coming to our plant to see what we do. So once the connections are made and they have an open mind, they start interacting without me. And that's when I know I'm doing my job. It's like when they're helping each other, and I find out about 2 months later, yeah, we've been there 8 times since that tour you set up. It was awesome. So you asked me, like, what is the kind of the light bulb moment that goes off? It is when they start seeing that these connections are real and beneficial. And wow, I was impressed with XYZ part of their operations, and they were willing to have me come in with my people and look at it at a different level on a one-on-one.
Quick break here. trust you're getting engaged with other manufacturing leaders, or you're thinking about it listening to this podcast. And hey, we're going to continue to bring more people into the community, and that builds through the newsletter. So if you go to manufacturinggreatness.com/subscribe, get in our community. I'm going to be sending out more links every month, and we're going to start to go weekly more with the newsletter. So more about that at the end. Let's get back to the show.
So as I said, the behavior is a little bit of a learned behavior. So I got to teach them, this is what happens. But I've been doing this a long time in the region. And as I mentioned, it's developed into the largest group in North America working together like that. A lot of it now happens organically through the connections. They just do it on their own. And from my aspect, I need to be consistent. I need to be consistent with my activities. I need to be consistent with my replies to members. It's a customer service play. I'm here to take care of them. And I'm very passionate about this and I enjoy it. And once they kind of realize that, hey, Jason is not going to take 3 weeks to email me. He's going to email me back in 10 minutes and he's going to be there to help me. That's a light bulb moment. And I've had numerous hey, Jay, I did not know this membership was going to be this beneficial. I've had members for 19 years since I started. They just keep renewing and keep on engaging. And I think in most industry associations, the non-renewal rate or the dropping the membership rate can be upwards of 20% a year. And I'm nowhere near, probably 2-3% a year that just don't renew. Plant could close or a new plant manager and different things like that. But we're consistently growing the membership. When I started, I had about 22 members in the region. And now we're upwards of 600.
I can remember going to some community meetings and okay, that's just part of their job. They just represent the company and it's just some communications or whatnot. But if I would have had a better understanding of the opportunities that I was missing out on, right, then that would have shifted a lot because we talk about curiosity and a lot in the workforce development space, right? As far as how do we leverage resources we already have in the building by how we show up for our team. And I think one of the areas that I had more judgment and less curiosity was like, oh yeah, he's going out of the building, right? There's this perception if we're going to leave the four walls, we're not as productive. But I think if we reframe that, maybe for some of our operations leaders that are tied to the shop floor, maybe the most productive thing they can do is go to another plant.
Yep. The shop floor stuff, as I mentioned, I get a kick out of just my career. I've managed huge cribs at huge Magna plants. I know you got a Magna background and other plants on vendor managed inventory. So I am comfortable with shop floor stuff. So when I came to EMC and you mentioned HR and senior managers or IT people or whatever. So my very first EMC session I did 20 years ago, and my background, I'm a sales guy, is my background. My very first EMC session I did was in Tilbury, Ontario, and it was in February. And it was at 8 a.m. It was an HR session. So I whipped down to Tilbury at 5 a.m. in the winter, and I had way too much coffee, and I'm sitting in front of 5 HR professionals, HR managers. They're looking at me for an attendance management fix. I'm having heart palpitations and I'm sweaty because I'm not an HR person. And so I quickly learned that my sessions cannot be about me leading it. It's about the group leading it, sharing best practices and benchmarking. So to this day, I still do HR roundtables monthly, 1 or 2 of those monthly. So that will be a group of HR professionals coming to a plant that wants to host, and they sit around a table. I have no agenda. They just benchmark and best practice share. So I just kick out, what do you guys want to talk about? And the HR folks will go around the table. I'm struggling with this. I'm working on this. Does anybody have a good policy on this? So they sit in this little community of, could be 5, could be 20, could be 30. I like my round tables to be manageable, like 15 to 20 companies at those, but I'll do multiple ones. And they will literally create that little HR community within manufacturing. And then they will say, could you share everybody's contact information that was here today? And I'll send out an email. Yeah, here's everybody who was there. And then off they go, asking each other questions. And I'm copying on the emails. I'm going, yeah, all right, that worked out perfect. So I'll do the plant tours where everybody can come. I'll do HR specific roundtables. I'll do senior management, senior roundtables where plant managers, owners, presidents will come and do the same thing. They'll just sit around a table with no agenda and talk about issues they're going through. So the senior manager ones are interesting because it could get down to municipal issues or provincial issues or federal issues and stuff like that. EMC is not a lobby organization, but I also manage something called the London Region Manufacturing Council. That allows me to do lobbying and advocacy on behalf of manufacturers in London, specifically at a municipal level. So if I'm doing a senior managers roundtable in London and they tell me public transit sucks to industrial parks, I can go to the city and say, hey, we need to fix this. Cool. Different things like that. Or the city wants to do industrial development charges. I say, well, you don't want to do that. That's a very short-term tax grab because you won't have any plants move here. And then you'll have no tax. So things like that I could do. So I'll do the roundtables with the HR senior managers. I'm doing one with business development folks in July. Sales and business development folks. Again, I will have probably 20 plants, 20 companies, business development folks sitting around the table. And again, they're just going to share best practices and answer ask questions of each other. Business development is interesting because there is competition in business development, but the community is still open to sitting around a table and sharing what's working and what's not working in their business development activities in the region. And so I'm really interested for that one. I haven't done a business development one before. And again, I take my marching orders from my members. I don't make up sessions that they want to do. They'll tell me what they want to do. We'll do them for health and safety, like round tables too. Again, health and safety professionals sitting around and chit-chatting, and IT and tech people. Those sessions, I just sit back and listen, facilitate the conversation, and then off they go and create those little units within the overall group of manufacturers we work with. But HR is interesting. I just sit at those and go, man, I'm glad I'm not an HR person. That's a tough job. But very
I'm
active.
speaking to an HR group in a couple months, so
Yeah.
I better be on my toes.
Yeah, and there are HR groups that do that. I think it's the HR Professional Association in
Yeah.
Ontario. But they'll go to their meeting and it'll be from all sectors. So it could be the HR person for the bank and Walmart and whoever. All my stuff is specifically manufacturers. I only work with manufacturers. My sessions, you need to be a manufacturing to come to. I don't have consultants out at them. I don't have service providers out at them. It's just manufacturers. If they lead me to a topic they want to explore that I need a topic expert in, I'll go out and find one and they can present to. But that's not my go-to. That's only if they tell me to.
That's brilliant. Because you talk about manufacturing as an industry community. Manufacturing industry community is what's changing, right? I'm just thinking of the part shortage, the HR policy, whatever it is, like you said, the answers are in the room, right? We have answers. We don't need to do all these other expenses. I'm in Kentucky right now, but I spend as much time as I do in Ontario. So I went to a manufacturing conference here. And there's a lot of bourbon that gets drank here, Jason. And the industry, since I've been here less than 10 years, it's just unraveled in a high volume way, right? They had Bill Samuels Jr. as the keynote. He is the son of Bill Samuels, who started Maker's Mark. And he was the closer. People were mesmerized because he's talking about he was the driver for Colonel Sanders. And he's telling the stories. But where he caught everybody was in 1990, one of the distilleries burnt down. There was only 9 distilleries, and bourbon was on the edge, right? It was not a growing industry. They were struggling. So all the other 8 plants all kind of gave something to kind of help that plant get back on its feet. I think at the time when he was speaking, it was a while ago, but there was 90 bourbon companies. And now I bet you there's hundreds. It's just grown so much. But he just said, if we didn't share our resources, if we didn't share all the secrets of making bourbon with each other, we wouldn't be here. And we got bigger and we got better because we were open. Like business development you were just talking about. Like bourbon is a product in itself, right? So it's, hey, we got to work together here and there's enough pie for all of us. So
yeah, it's rewarding to do this and make the connections and to see it grow and to have the community. The community we've developed here, my partners in economic development in the region will use it when they're on business attraction trips, and they'll often introduce me to the company they're trying to open a plant here. And when I tell them, yeah, we have this whole community in place here, it is a business attraction tool for my economic development partners when they're trying to get plants here. There's a large PowerCo battery plant moving in the region, Volkswagen, a partnership to make EVs, and it's maybe about 3,000 people when it's done. And I was very proud to find out that I was talked about with what we do in excellence in manufacturing when they were recruiting them to the region, and they thought that was a neat idea. A lot of times I'm brought in on these conversations, but I wasn't on this one. They just told me after. I was like, oh, that's really cool and quite rewarding that you guys are talking about what I'm doing when you're out on these big level trips to attract people here. Because when a plant moves here, I'm often involved with them when they're just a hole in the ground and they're being built, and I'm helping them find local vendors. I'm helping them find local suppliers. I'm helping them navigate different levels of politics. And so when I get in on a plant from the ground up, it's a lot of fun, from their hiring, from their policies to I need a warehouse to store all the equipment coming in. And when I'm the guy they call for those things, it's quite amazing. It's even evolved into when somebody's got equipment they no longer use. I got an old CNC I don't use or an old lathe I don't use. I'll post that in my communications. And again, I'm not stepping on it for money. I'm just, hey, these guys are interested in your CNC and here's the people that have it, and they connect and off they go. And even those relationships develop into other levels of relationships. So yeah, I bought that CNC before, so I went in your shop to look at it. I didn't know you did that. Can you quote that part for me? So these things just happen with the networking and the consistency of it. So there's neat things that I find out about after that happened, after the connection, that make this particularly rewarding, what I get to do.
if you're not convinced yet, I don't know what'll convince you. If you're listening right now and you're debating, hey, should I spend a few hours or a day outside the plant? Should I go to my owner or my plant manager and suggest that we engage? And if they do that, whether they're in Southwestern Ontario or anywhere, US or Canada, there's a lot of our listeners here, and they want to get involved in a community, because I'm sure they're not Oh, like some communities are probably stronger than others.
All right.
But if you're new to this and hey, I'm too far away from Jason, I do want to get involved. What should I be looking for in these communities to know that it's a good one to engage in?
I would be happy to talk to anybody anywhere in Canada or the United States about how to do this. It is a specific kind of technique and attack mode we do to do it. As I mentioned a few times, this is a learned behavior, especially with adults and business people. I see this in other areas sometimes, and a lot of times it'll be a plant manager that thinks it's a good idea and they will try to organize it as themselves or another business owner. But the problem is they have a business to run. What I do is full time. This is a full time job to do it at the level you do it at, especially when you're building it, going to visit people, going to preach the gospel of why it's a good idea, getting them out to events and sessions and different things. So it's not easy. When I hire new people to start new consortiums, I'm like, it's going to take you 2 years to figure this out. You're going to get doors shut on you. It's going to be a challenge. They're going to maybe think it's a good idea and they're not. And I even tell when I'm talking to manufacturers to join, I said, if you're not going to engage with me after you join, don't join. If you engage with this, what we do, you're going to like it. I guarantee you. But if you don't engage, don't join. You got to engage. So yeah, it takes time. So I would gladly talk to any of your contacts if they're interested in doing something like this. We're pretty covered across Canada. I got people everywhere. You're right. Some communities embrace it different than the others. Urban centers operate differently than rural centers. Like in London, Ontario, I may have 800 manufacturers in the region. So I got a big pond to fish from and a lot of activity I could do. If you get into a rural area, yeah, there might be 100 manufacturers, but they're each an hour away. It can be hard. In Canada, in the winter, there's always a snowstorm the night before you got a plant tour, and I got to postpone it. But no, man, it's a lot of fun. It took me a few years to wrap my head around it. Like I said, I'm a sales guy, so I was used to selling a wrench or a CNC machine or a pipe threader, which you can touch and feel. It's a tangible item. This is an idea. It's a concept. It's an intangible thing. So you really got to sell them on, I'm going to do what I'm telling you to do and then do it. So that's why this is all I do. It's full time and it keeps me busy and it's a commitment. It's not, I've seen a lot of those smaller when a plant manager will try to do it or somebody in the community will try to do it that has another job. It just peters out after a year.
Yeah. So those are some good tips of advice here. Is there someone running it or is there someone leading it? That's their main focus. That's a good measure. And then obviously the engagement. What's the engagement of that community? Because I ran just past COVID, I had to go to some online training with some emotional intelligence. I had some different manufacturers from different plants. And it was emotional intelligence. It was with some plant managers, some HR directors. And some of the feedback I got after the course, you get some feedback. And some of the critique was, hey, I don't know if I was just totally comfortable sharing some of our problems. Because it was like, it's bigger than us. It's bigger than your plant. It's bigger than London, right? It's the manufacturing industry. And that's why we're doing this international survey between Canada and the US to see where manufacturing is going. We're going to have those results in the next month. Writing this book is for everybody, right? It's to manufacture greatness, and we can do a lot more together. And we all have the same problems. So it's if you think you're going to share a problem in that plant, oh, we don't have any behavior issues like that, or no, our MRO crib, we don't miss any parts. It's okay. Then you probably don't bother this community. Because I've never seen that before. It's like we're all in this together. And if we really want to be self-sustainable, you got to either join an EMC or something local, or it's bigger than you. And when your mindset changes that, and then I like what you said, it's that learned behavior.
Yeah. And you take where I'm on the ground, I say Southern Ontario. We do say London, but I take care of all of Southern Ontario. So we'll say from Windsor, Ontario, for your audience that doesn't know where that is, right across from Detroit, all the way up through to Toronto. And London is in the middle of all that. So I'm an hour and a half to Windsor. I'm 40 minutes to Sarnia. I'm 45 minutes to Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge, Guelph. That is the Canadian heartland of manufacturing. So my activities, I could do a plant tour in Windsor and I'll have people from Kitchener and Toronto and London going to it. So the regional part to it has really took off. The roundtables do more regionally or more locally, but it is the comfort on traveling to other plants in the region has skyrocketed since tariffs because they really want to expand their areas. So now it's all of a sudden
another good
reason
for tariffs.
I didn't want to take the 40-minute drive to the plant tour in Kitchener before from London. Now it's all of a sudden, yeah, let's go. And it's really interesting to how it's evolved and the growth. I think a person like me who is a resource, COVID was good for me in my business. I engaged more manufacturers in that because nobody knew what to do with COVID. And I was like, okay, I can do sessions and bring a labor lawyer in to talk about all this, that, and everything. So all of a sudden I'm doing online sessions with 600 companies. I'm holy smokes. And then tariffs happen. And again, people look for supports. I don't have the answers. I'll bring in a customs broker to talk about what you need to do this. And I can facilitate the business development stuff and the connections, but they got to do the part after is making the connections and doing this stuff. So yeah, it's interesting how the communities evolve and the relationships evolve and the connections evolve, and it's fun.
It is fun. You know what? And manufacturing is fun.
And
But
interesting, you're a Magna guy. You've been around
yeah,
Magna.
absolutely.
99.9% of manufacturers in Canada, I'm going to assume the same for the United States too, are small SMEs. We'll say 200 and smaller. So that's where I focus. Yeah, I have Magna plants that are EMC members, but a lot of times the larger companies will be like Toyota. Nah, we're gonna do all the sharing and not get anything back. Or a GM or a Ford or something. They're hard to engage in a community like this because they're big and they might do some of the best practice sharing internally, and the media will focus on the bigger companies, and you don't hear about Bill's welding shop with 8 people around the corner. Right? There's 500 of Bill's welding shops with 8 people. So that's a lot of people that work in those SMEs, right? I focus on the SMEs. I will go talk to anybody. I was in a room with Toyota last week and they told me we've never made more vehicles in Canada. We've just never lost more money on each vehicle in Canada because assembled products are getting tariffed in the United States. But a big company like Toyota hasn't laid off a single person yet, hasn't cut one shift yet, anything. They see a bigger picture than a 2-year time frame or whatever this is going to be, right? The SMEs I deal with, I don't just deal with a plant manager or an HR manager. Everybody can participate in what I do at the plant. So on these plant tours, I might get a guy that they just hired 3 months ago and operates a CNC machine. I might get the receptionist. It doesn't matter who comes to my sessions. When I do the sessions in the tour, everybody has to pick out 3 things they saw that they like and 3 things they think the host can improve upon before we leave. At the end of the tour, I break them up to little groups of 4 or 5 so I can have the plant manager or the CEO of a company sitting with a 24-year-old who just started their career in manufacturing. And they're going to talk at the same level about what they saw and what they didn't saw. So it's really cool how these things are very inclusive on the membership. It's not just for senior management. When you get involved with EMC or me, anybody can participate. I don't care who comes out, just as long as you send somebody.
I'm proud of you, Jason, and the community, Southwestern Ontario, and just the manufacturing industry. And I think if more people come to the table like you and look at it like it's bigger than one person and we do need each other, if you're having fun, and I bet you a lot of your members are having fun, right? Because when you're not in it alone and others succeed and that around you, that just makes the difference. And I just think that there's a lot of tie-ins today we heard on where the news is looking for the big headlines. That's a problem, but sometimes a little tension's okay because it makes us, you know what, I will make that drive. You know, I will engage more with each other because when you're right, when you're the fat cow, I don't need anybody. I'm making money. I'm good. I'm a big corporation. And it's kind of like, that's short-term thinking. That's not an abundance. And so I just call on the listeners today, where can you engage with? And how did you said that a listener could each reach out to you?
Absolutely.
How did the listeners best follow you, Jason, or get involved or reach out to you?
You can go on the EMC Canada webpage, www.emccanada.org. You'll find me on there. You'll see the Factory Focus podcast on there. I just talk to people in plants, plant owners, plant managers, or you can post my email on the thread before you post this, Trevor, if you like. And yeah, I don't mind talking to anybody anywhere in North America about how I've experienced doing this, how it's worked, what hasn't worked, what has worked, and what it can evolve into. And yeah, happy to do this. Like I said, I've grown up in manufacturing. I grew up in Windsor, Ontario, actually right across from Detroit. I spent 3 years whipping around Metro Detroit, picking up industrial supplies in a van with a CB. Was the most fun I ever had in my life. So there's not too many things I haven't seen in manufacturing. We go on all these tours and I still get a charge when I go on a plant floor and I see something. I prefer old school plants where the molten copper's spilling out over the vat. You go into a lot of plants now and it's like a hotel lobby. They're so clean, but I'm a kind of old school guy. I like the smell of cutting fluid and different things like that. But manufacturing is cool. It is not what it used to be, the dirty, unsafety type thing. It is very technologically advanced and it's very clean and safe and good career opportunities. Even if you start out on the shop floor, if you work hard and you have an open mind, you're going to move up quick. I always tell youth that you're going to start a production position, but just work hard. I guarantee you in a year, they'll be talking to you about a promotion or how you want to be trained to move up the ladder. It's interesting. When all these tours I've done, one of my favorite parts is I'll bring a group of 20, 30 people through a tour and I'll lose 10 of them and they're sitting around a cell because they've never seen a cell like that before, just pointing out things like the robotics or this, that, and everything. And I'm going, you guys, kids in a candy shop, pointing at these things there and yeah, man, we're going to do this at our shop. We never thought of a layout like this. This is a great idea. So that's the thing about something as simple as a plant tour is you're going to You may not pick up what we're there to talk about specifically, but you might see a measurable on their measurable boards or their quality boards, or you might see something simple as how did they get that line striping on their plant floor that you've been trying to figure out for 15 years. These little things that come out of the tours are quite mind-boggling, right? It doesn't always have to be this big, we're going to implement AI after this tour. It could just be that little day-to-day stuff that helps you take the next step and continued success.
Right on. Pleasure to be partnered with you in this community, Jason. Thank you for what you do. Thanks for coming on the show. And I hope the listeners are feeling uplifted because I am. Appreciate you.
One thing I'll just before we go, last year I do a large event for manufacturers. It's the largest event just for manufacturers in Canada. Doing it about 20 odd years, and it's just really developed into a great event. We call it Manufacturing Matters. It's October 1st in London, Ontario. Last year's keynote was Linda Hasenfratz. She is the CEO, chair of the board of Linamar. I think a lot of your folks will be familiar with Linamar. They're one of the larger Canadian-based manufacturers. They do automotive, they do agricultural implements, they do material handling, different things like that. And this was right last year at this point in time, we were right in the thick of the tariffs. She got up on stage and just painted such a rosy and positive picture of Canadian manufacturing and the opportunities that she's seeing out there and how Linamar is growing and how other manufacturers can grow by thinking outside the box, looking at different things that they're perhaps not used to. And it was awesome to have a lady of that caliber, of that level in the sector come out and paint a rosy picture of the sector. And a lot of people walked out uplifted from that. Then I had another member who summed it up great. Tariffs are scary for a business person, but they're an entrepreneur's dream, right? How do we fill the void that tariffs are creating? A lot of really forward-thinking manufacturers are jumping onto government lists of what we import from the United States into Canada that maybe we're going to make here now. So again, entrepreneur's dream, if you could figure out how to make that part that they're making in the United States here and serve the markets. Some people are doing quite well because they have that mindset. But as I said, I don't want to downplay the scariness of the tariff or the uncertainty because business doesn't like that. Entrepreneurs do.
It's all an evolution. It's just how we look at it. So I appreciate your framework. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate you. And thanks for bringing up the Manufacturing Matters, October 1st, London, Ontario.
Yeah. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you for having me out today. I enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks for spending time with us. If today's show landed, do something. Contact another manufacturer. And you be a little bit more open about what you're learning and you can learn from others. Or maybe there's community that you can get engaged in. But time away from the shop doesn't mean that's a lack of productivity. That could be the number one move that you can make right now to improve your safety, quality, and productivity. And the second move might be to subscribe to the newsletter at manufacturinggreatness.com/subscribe. You can download 10 questions that get more curious about yourself and others and to unlock more of your potential. And that's how community starts. So I hope you join our community, connect with Jason and the EMC, and we'll see you next week.